All right, everyone, it's time for a little bit of history. Most of you have never heard of Michael Mann and the hockey stick hypothesis, you could call it. This was the basis years and years ago for the concept of global warming, actually. Do you know why we use the term climate change now in colloquial parlance? It's because global warming was, because of this in part, effectively disproven, actually. The globe is warming, albeit very, very slowly, and you can't necessarily account for it all by human activity. In fact, arguably, hate to say it, but there's some global cooling going on, which is a bad news, actually. If anything, you should buy another SUV. That will prolong us a little bit longer. Things will be a little bit better. There'll be less famines in the world. You do not want another ice age. I don't think that a colder, drier world would be more hospitable to human life than the one that we currently live in, which is, at least relatively speaking, more humid and warm. The hockey stick hypothesis, there's that famous chart with the hockey stick showing a sudden spike, a sudden rise in temperature and CO2 and things like that. Michael Mann was involved with this, and there was a long-standing lawsuit with regards to this because he was suing people who were critical of his particular hypothesis and basically saying, you hurt my fee-fees. Well, he lost the case. He has to pay almost $1 million in court fees now, which I find absolutely hilarious. I wonder how many legacy media networks are actually going to cover this particular very important story. Because the courts found, hey, we're not allowed to censor people's lawful opinions, because that's literally what was happening. People were getting penalized and sued simply for rebuking a theory that they happened not to disagree with. Well, that's not the way science works. The way science works is you put forth a hypothesis, and anyone in the world can debate you on the subject. That's how science works. If you do the chilling effect thing with regards to these hypotheses, then it's no longer science. It's purely political. The reason why the censorship and so forth happens with certain things is never about the science. It's never about scientific findings. It's never about scientific studies. It's always about money and or politics. That's the only thing they can ever be about, because that's not the way that science works. Science is Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison arguing over AC/DC. Sadly, they never lived long enough to know of the band. They probably would have been quite fans of it if they had. There was one interesting instance in which Thomas Edison roasted an elephant with an alternating current, because it sparks up and looks a little bit different from direct current, and he was a fan of direct current. We now know that AC is generally better for most applications, and yeah, he killed an elephant, hoisted it up on a lift, and then electrocuted it to death in front of a crowd to show that Tesla's development of alternating current was uh, terribly dangerous. Yeah, this actually happened. There's so many things in history that have happened that are so fascinating that almost nobody knows about, by the way. Michael Mann, he now has to pay out almost $1 million for his frivolous lawsuit. I bet he regrets that. He thought that his science was going to become so orthodox that somehow it bypasses both the scientific and legal processes. That's not the way that it works, by the way. And the fact is, global warming is not evenly applied. And while it is happening, there's a reason why they switched the term climate change, because it's unevenly applied. While the globe is, generally speaking, as an aggregate warming, number one, we're not sure exactly how much of that is due to human activity. Number two, it's not a threat to the planet. Number three, it's unevenly applied. So some areas may become a bit warmer, and also it's very, very slow. So, you're talking a span of thousands of years or something like that before it could ever become a significant issue anyway. If the globe warms by a degree, who cares? It means nothing. You're also working with limited data. This is the other problem. You're working with less than 200 years of actual solid data according to the kind of measurements that are being used now. You're, in fact, working with less than a century's worth of data, arguably. Sort of depends on what you're measuring for, because people back in the 1800s didn't have the kind of scientific sophistication, the technological capabilities that we have now. Certainly, when you go back far beyond that, there was no technological sophistication for any of the measurements that are being taken. So you're working with a very, very limited data set over time. We can look at ice cores. That's fun. Unfortunately, you only have ice cores to actually extract from certain parts of the globe. For example, we have no ice core from the Sahara Desert, so we can't really see what was happening over time with regards to the temperature and superficial deposits and so forth there. It's impossible. Or from the Congo, or from the Brazilian rainforests, or something like that. There's no ice core to actually extract. You can extract from glaciers, by the way, one managing to slough off the other day in Switzerland. At least one person was killed at last check, and half of a town was buried. That's rather sad. You can extract from that, or you can go to the Arctic or Antarctica. You can get ice cores there. But that only gives you a very, very small, again, data set. It gives you very limited information. Under such circumstances, it's very difficult to actually tell what the hell is going on as far as climate and so forth goes, because it's only from one of the poles or from a handful of glacial locations. Those are the only, and I don't think they generally extract from most glaciers because they tend to be on the out and out anyway. Also, then you get sea ice versus glacial ice. You've got all of these obfuscations within the parlance, within the context of climate change. Again, this is one of the primary reasons why they stopped saying global warming and started saying climate change. They switched the terminology. We'll be talking a lot about linguistic terminology over the coming days. Trust me. That's about all. Peace out.